Motif, Key Ideas from Best Nonfiction. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. This book delves into the experience of life in a concentration camp and explores what helps some prisoners survive without breaking down. Thanks to the survivors of the Nazi concentration camps, we now have a vivid understanding of the horrors that took place there. This naturally leads to the question, how did Holocaust victims manage to maintain their sanity? What gave them the strength to endure? Viktor Frankl, a psychologist who lived through a concentration camp himself, sheds light on this phenomenon. Drawing from his personal experiences and his observations of other prisoners, he developed a psychological theory known as logotherapy. At the core of this theory is the idea that to survive, overcome challenges, and ultimately find happiness, a person must discover meaning in life. Insight 1. The initial reaction to the concentration camp: false hope and despair. The reactions of prisoners to their new reality can be broken down into 3 phases. The first phase began as soon as people arrived at the concentration camp. Although they were aware of what the Nazis were doing to prisoners, they couldn't fully grasp that the same fate awaited them. People tried to convince themselves that such horrors wouldn't happen to them. They searched desperately for any good sign in their situation, hoping it meant they would somehow escape a terrible fate. The shock was so overwhelming that prisoners clung to even the faintest glimmer of hope. For instance, when inmates were divided into 2 groups, they believed that their group would be the one to survive. In reality, no one knew who would be sent to forced labor and who would face execution. However, any hope the prisoners had was quickly shattered. Survival no longer seemed like salvation. As they witnessed unimaginable cruelty day after day, many began to see suicide as a way to escape their suffering. Insight 2. The second stage of camp life: apathy and a focus on survival. The numbing of emotions was a psychological defense mechanism against the daily trauma of death and cruelty. At this stage, all the prisoners' mental energy was directed towards survival. They stopped thinking about or discussing their feelings and experiences. Conversations and even their dreams centered solely on what could help them survive, like food. The horrors around them no longer seemed as shocking. The death of others no longer stirred compassion. Instead, prisoners grasped at any opportunity to slightly improve their chances of survival, taking clothes, shoes, or scraps of food from the deceased. In normal life, people think about the future, but in the concentration camp, everyone lived day by day. No one thought about what might come next. The prisoners were focused on surviving the present, yet, in reality, their lives already felt over. There were no plans, no aspirations. Life had become mere existence. Insight 3. Life after liberation: disbelief and bitterness. Survivors faced new challenges after their liberation. Returning to normal life after enduring such a nightmare seemed almost impossible. Many found it difficult to truly comprehend their freedom and take joy in it. The apathy had sunk so deep that feeling happiness or pleasure seemed beyond reach. Additionally, when they returned home, many discovered their cities in ruins and their loved ones gone. Some survivors, after enduring so much suffering, felt a strong desire to inflict harm on others. They fantasized about revenge against the guards, seeing it as a way to compensate for the pain they had suffered. Often, Holocaust survivors did not receive the compassion they so desperately needed. When they shared their experiences, they sought empathy, but were sometimes met with indifferent shrugs, as if to say, everyone had it hard. Only with time did most former prisoners begin to rediscover joy and move forward with their lives. Insight 4. The inner life that helped prisoners endure the horrors of reality. How did some people in the concentration camps manage to survive and stay sane? It all came down to where they focused their minds. Those who survived were often the ones who could draw on happy memories and focus on them. Joyful moments from the past provided a brief escape from the nightmares of the present. The reality for these prisoners was just as harsh as for everyone else. They worked hard in the cold, ate little and poorly, and were constantly ill. But they had something the guards could never take away: their imagination, their memories, their humor, and the ability to hold mental conversations with loved ones. Love, or even just the memory of it, became a true lifeline for many. Those who managed to shift their focus to these inner resources found it somewhat easier to bear the burdens of camp life. The ability to find joy in small, everyday things also helped. The light in the barracks, a beautiful sunset, or singing songs. Even joking about camp life and what the future might hold provided brief moments of relief. Insight 5. Some prisoners accepted their fate, while others tried to change it. The ability to choose what to wear, what to eat, or what to do is something we often take for granted. But in a concentration camp, everything was different. In most cases, prisoners were stripped of any choice. However, there were moments when they had a chance to influence their future. These decisions often meant the difference between life and death. For example, prisoners were sometimes ordered to be transferred to another camp. This order could occasionally be changed. Those who worked harder and took on extra shifts might be allowed to stay. The catch was that it was impossible to know which decision would be life-saving and which would be fatal. Would the other camp offer better conditions, or would it be a direct path to the gas chamber? No one knew. At this point, prisoners fell into two groups. Some chose not to interfere with their fate, accepting whatever came their way. Others, however, seized any chance to influence their lives, despite the risks. This second group of prisoners stood out from the rest. These individuals did not lower their moral standards. Even in the midst of horror, they held on to their principles and values. They helped others, shared their food, even when they themselves were suffering. Insight 6. The essence of logotherapy. It is the meaning in our lives that drives us. Viktor Frankl's experience in the concentration camp led him to a profound realization. Meaning is the strongest driving force in a person's life. Those who found and clung to a sense of meaning were stronger than others. This sense of purpose provided the hope that helped them survive. These insights formed the basis of Viktor Frankl's theory, logotherapy. The theory suggests that the search for meaning is the most powerful motivator in life. People who do not find meaning in their lives often feel an inner emptiness, an existential vacuum. And it doesn't take a traumatic experience like a concentration camp to feel this void. A common example is the Sunday neurosis. After a long, exhausting work week, the weekend finally arrives. But instead of finding relaxation, a person now free from work may be overwhelmed by a sense of meaninglessness when left alone with their thoughts. The purpose of logotherapy is to help a person escape this existential vacuum and discover meaning in their life. Insight 7. The meaning of life is unique to each person and moment. We often think that to navigate life, we must first discover our purpose. Logotherapy, however, offers a different perspective. It is through our actions and the reasons behind them that we find our meaning. Even in the harsh conditions of a concentration camp, some prisoners sought beauty in nature, helped others, and tried to remain humane. These choices gave them a sense of purpose, and this purpose helped them survive. This shows that meaning is not universal. It's different for each individual. Just as there is no single best move in a game of chess, it depends on the specific situation. There is no one right meaning of life. It varies based on the person, their actions, and their circumstances. Logotherapy helps people understand that each of us has the power to define our own meaning in life, based on our values and choices. We are free to choose our meaning, whether it's something personal, helping others, or contributing to society. The choice is ours to make. Insight 8. Logotherapy as a tool for overcoming fear. While finding meaning in life is the central goal of logotherapy, It also provides tools to help people deal with various psychological challenges. Traditional psychotherapy often focuses on identifying the root cause of a person's fear, specific events or circumstances that trigger anxiety. Logotherapy, however, believes that people can take control of their lives regardless of external conditions. It encourages us to shift our focus from external factors to our inner resources. This approach empowers people to manage their fears. Often when we fear something, it tends to happen, but if we try to make it happen intentionally, it often doesn't. Logotherapy leverages this paradox to help people overcome their fears. For example, someone might fear large groups, becoming anxious and blushing in social situations. But if you ask them to deliberately try to blush in a crowd, they'll find it surprisingly difficult. By encouraging patients to intentionally face what they fear, logotherapy employs a technique known as paradoxical intention. With practice, this approach can gradually cause the fear to diminish and eventually disappear. Conclusion: every person needs to find meaning in life. It doesn't have to be something grand or lifelong. It can be personal, fitting your current circumstances. And as time goes on, that meaning may change, and that's perfectly natural. Having a sense of purpose in life affects not just our happiness and success, but sometimes even our ability to survive. You've just listened to the key insights from Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. If you found this summary valuable, don't miss our upcoming breakdown of The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren, another profound exploration of finding purpose and direction. For more insightful summaries of the best nonfiction books, be sure to subscribe to the Motif channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new summary.